Everyone's getting new haircuts around here.
Every time you get a haircut, it's a new haircut.
Welcome to the Rowdy.com Big Three. I'm Buck Fever. That is Buzz Cutler. We're going to talk about the three burning issues, or the three things we want to talk about in NASCAR racing.
Yeah, they're not really burning, but we do want to talk about them. And the first thing we want to talk about is this little statistic that Matt Willis over at the Four Letter pointed out I thought was interesting. Thanks to Kevin Harvick and his top 10 performance, or top 5 performance, I think.
Yes, yeah.
At Sonoma, Richard Childress Racing recorded their 800th career top 10 as a team. Richard Childress got the first one many years ago. But look, Dale Earnhardt Sr., the Intimidator, accounts for 348 of them. Kevin Harvick is second with 140 of them.
Wow. Those are interesting stats.
Indeed. And, you know, the thing that it made me think about is I was one of the biggest advocates for Kevin Harvick leaving RCR, saying he was done, he burned his bridges, it was time for him to move on. But, you know, I look at these sort of stats, and it sort of, and I might be overstating it, but it sort of suggests to me that he really has inherited the mantle from Dale Earnhardt for that team, and there's so much history and so much symbiosis there between him taking over Dale's ride. Maybe, maybe it really...
Maybe there's some magical things there that he's been given the mantle. I mean, you don't really think of it that way, but, the ghost could be there.
There's some alchemy. I mean, that's what's interesting to me. You don't really think about it in terms of, Kevin Harvick has taken over that team from Dale Earnhardt. But when you think about the history, and you think about how Kevin Harvick stepped into that ride after Dale Earnhardt's tragic death, and you just follow that through to its natural conclusion, which is today, Kevin Harvick sort of being atop the points rankings for Richard Childress Racing.
It's an interesting concept, especially when you think about how badly the whole team, all the cars did after Dale Earnhardt's death. They went into a big slump, and Harvick has pulled them out of the slump.
Issue number 2, also from the Four Letter. I spent a lot of time on the Four Letter today, I guess.
Yeah.
Terry Blunt wrote a blog saying he thinks the way to fix the Nationwide Series, because we're about to crown the 5th champion in a row who's a Cup regular in the Nationwide Series. He says the way to fix it is to institute a chase format in the Nationwide Series, but don't allow Cup regulars to perform in the chase.
It's kind of unfair to hose somebody that's saying, "Hey, I am going to try and run for a championship," like Kyle Busch has done it. I'm going to do Carl Edwards, but by the same token, I would have to believe even if you got 2 Cup guys in a chase of 12, they're the guys that are going to win it. So I think Terry Blunt's got a decent idea.
Yeah, I don't see the idea working for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you just say, okay, starting with the chase, Cup drivers can't run. Well, then clearly you have a paper champion, right? Because the Nationwide guy who eventually wins the chase crown wasn't competing against all the other talent that came through the series from during that season, right? So it's a meaningless championship.
It depends on what your goals are. Are your goals to have somebody who wins the championship who is not a full-time Cup driver? Is that your goal?
Well, see, if that's the goal, and perhaps that is a worthy goal, is to make sure that a non-Cup regular wins the championship. The only legitimate way to do that is then to limit Cup regulars' participation in the series. Otherwise, it's just a watered-down championship.
It's a giant catch-22. It's always been that way. Always been that way. Next issue.
But it hasn't always been that way.
Well,
when Rick Mast came up through the Busch series, it wasn't that way.
Yeah, it is that way. And because I've asked him endlessly, hey, what did you think about when Dale Earnhardt would come and run some Busch races? And he would say, I loved it because meant I got to compete against the best.
But Dale Earnhardt wasn't running every single Busch race week in and week out. That's the difference.
Fair enough.
It was an anomaly. All right, issue number 2. I went over to speedtv.com. I spent a lot of time on TV websites today. I don't know why. There's something weird going in there. Here are I'm not going to read you quotes from the blogs. I'm not going to read you the columns. I'm just going to read the headlines of each of the columns that I saw. Jensen, boys will be boys. Sadler, the boys have had at it. Spencer, the good old days are back. Do you see a theme here?
What, the boys theme?
Well, the theme is obviously that, the boys have at it policy in these guys' minds
is working.
Is a good thing. Is it possible that it might backfire?
I don't think so. I mean, I like Jeff Gordon going and bumping people around. I like Tony Stewart saying, man, people are really kind of overly aggressive. I guess I'm going to have to step my aggressiveness up. I like Jimmy Johnson getting into Jeff Gordon. I think it's fun. I think Denny Hamlin getting upset. Keselowski, all of that. Carl Edwards. It's been a fun season.
It has been a fun season, and it's been a fun season from our perspective as diehard race fans. My only question is, in trying to woo new fans to the sport, are you playing into the stereotype of, oh, it's just a bunch of guys and you're watching them and waiting for the crash, or it's just a bunch of guys, it's too WWE?
Today is the 20th anniversary of Days of Thunder, and Rubbin is racing.
I think the boys have added policy has basically NASCAR's way of saying, look, if we're going to woo new fans, we're going to woo them to the sport the way the sport should be run. We're not going to try to change the sport in order to attract new eyeballs.
And I totally agree with you, and I don't hear any driver saying, hey, I don't like this new policy. I don't hear any of them, even the ones that did get wrecked. So I think it's fun, and I think it's a great way to introduce folks to the core and the heart and the soul of our sport.
The core and the heart of the soul of our sport is the Rowdy.com Big Three.
Rowdy.com. Say it like it is.
Say what like it is?
Rowdy.com.